Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining us. I have Anna Redmond, CEO and co-founder of Hippo Thinks, on the show with me today. All right, Anna, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
All right. Now, you as the founder of content marketing firm Hippo Thinks, let's talk about the difference between baby boomers and millennials and how marketing has really changed.
Sure. So, we deal with this a lot. Millennials are actually the largest living generation, which surprises some people. And they are actually dramatically different in the way that they spend money and the way that they commit to products. What we've seen is that they are so much more willing to support a company whose values they agree with, rather than putting the quality of the product first, which is a very blunt way to say it, but that's actually what we're seeing. And so on our end, we've been much more encouraging of leaders to take their leadership seriously and to go beyond saying, I produce the best widget, but my company is company X, and these are the values that we believe in, and this is what we stand for.
Right. Let's take a case in point, say Nike brand.
Sure. So I think with the Colin Kaepernick advertising, what we've seen is that the company has grown in value, presumably overnight. Clearly, the product hasn't changed, right? They're still the same shoes. But what has changed is that people have been hungry for some sort of, I won't even say political, I think it's ethical and moral leadership. And Nike has stepped in to fill that void. And the support for them has been overwhelming, and people have been voting with their money. And if anything, for me, the takeaway for business leaders is that we all need to start doing this, and we need to do this in a way that's authentic and in a way that's genuine. Obviously, if you come into a situation like this and you're just sort of trying to play to the room, it doesn't work as well. But when you're broadcasting real values, then the reception can be tremendous.
I agree with you 100%. And that's part of your statement that drives down to the bottom of it. The soul of marketing is changing. Let's discuss how it's changing and when the change began.
So I think it's been a gradual progression. Candidly, probably over, dozens and dozens of years. And for me, what it really has tied into is this notion of self-identity. And if you'll excuse the history lesson, I'll take a step back. We went through a phase where people were born knowing who they were. And when I say knowing who they were, I mean not only in terms of class or family position, but even family values. And you had families that for generations would say, we are super brave. We always serve. It's who we are. It's what we do. And maybe that meant for them the armed forces, and not just in the U.S., but, in Europe and different countries. There were families that did this through generations. There were families that were very pious. There were families that were exceptional craftsmen. And that was something that was really conveyed from parent to child. Fast forward to the 20th century, and particularly to millennials, you see that millennials are much less likely to live in the same hometown where they grew up. They have had 3+ jobs in the last 5 years. They are much less tightly affiliated with any sort of organization that promotes identity, whether it's, a country club, a police officers union, just anything that comes not just with core membership, but with a set of values attached. And so for this reason, millennials are actually every single day doing this work of identity building. And you see it, in a negative way sometimes, because you have these millennials, and we make fun of them, saying, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want to do. Like, how do I define myself? But there's a very real flip side of that for us as business leaders, as marketers, in that this is a huge group of people that is really looking for non-traditional markers of identity. And for them, that turns out to be products in a lot of ways. And you see that in the ways that millennials will curate their Instagram feeds, their Facebook pages, because a lot of the products they put on there isn't just, I tried this yogurt and it was delicious, or I bought this shirt and it looks great on me. It's this yogurt was founded by these two guys who climbed the Himalayas and met someone and had a spiritual experience. And it's organic and it has CBD in it. And there's this whole story, and this whole story is really a cornerstone of identity. And when we look at marketing to millennials this way, in this authentic, identity-focused way, I think it really redefines how we look at marketing in general. For me, it takes it out of marketing is a tool that supports the company to marketing in some ways is in a key leadership role of what's driving the business forward.
Right, and it's a way to get advocates for your brand.
Absolutely. And I think, when you look at it through a cynical lens, you can say it's all about the bottom line. When you look at it through a lens of people expressing themselves and being authentic, it can be very freeing. And we've worked with clients, for 5+ years, and I've seen a tremendous change in the last 2, and this has been really since the election, that people have been much more willing to own their values and to stand up for them. And we've had, conversations with clients who would get on the phone with us and say, here's what I really believe. Oh my gosh, you can't say that. Let's dial it back. Wait, let me re-edit that sentence 5 times because here's the long list of people I don't want to offend. And that was, sort of 5 years ago. And now what we're seeing are people saying, you know what? This is what I believe. This is what my company has stood for. And I want to go out there and take a stand and actually talk about this publicly. And they're getting a tremendous amount of support for it. They're definitely getting pushback, but for them, the support is so much more worth it.
I agree with you. I agree. I see it every day. Let's talk about the guiding principles you think people should know about with their companies and their products, so that they can be more in line with the millennial consumer base.
I think it comes back to what you care about when everything else is gone. Ultimately, like you think about worst case scenario, who am I really at my core, and why have I started this company? Why am I running it? And, what's interesting to me is that I do see people really thinking this way. And even though their product may be, an eraser or a chair or something that feels mundane, the principles that they actually implement in the way that they've built the company and their product aren't. And that can extend to the way that they hire, that can extend to the way that they sell, how they support their clients, what their customer service looks like. And so there's a huge package there that to me really is the core of how you lead, right? Who are you as a leader? And when people can sit down, and we do a lot of these exercises with our clients, and the interesting thing is sometimes they start in a place that feels shallow and like, we're easy to work with, we're nice, we're supportive. And when we start to really drill, what I want to find is what values are genuinely yours that someone else wouldn't agree to? What's the bucket of values that aren't just like general positive values that everyone can say, oh yeah, sure, like I want to be that too, I want to be that too, but what do you raise your hand for that not a lot of people do? And you start with that, and then you build around it. And, I think courage is a really big piece of it. And we often think about courage as, military leadership, as political leadership. There's a lot of courage that goes into business leadership. I think the Colin Kaepernick ads were definitely an act of business courage. I'm sure they were calculated, but there could have been blowback. That could have played very differently. But the fact that Nike went ahead and did that really won them fans. I'll give you another example. This was, I think, slightly less followed in social media, but Campbell's Soup about a year ago ran a commercial featuring same-sex parents, and they had a lot of blowback. But the other thing that was remarkable is people who probably are not in the demographic for Campbell's Soup, people who probably haven't had the product, maybe don't even think it tastes great, came out in droves to support the company. And part of the way they supported the company was financially, right? By buying the product, by retweeting it. And I think that was a tremendous act of courage as well. They owned a value and they stood by it.
I agree with you. One of the other terms that comes up that you don't think about is not just what we do, not just how we do it, but why are we doing it? Seems to be resonating with these people. That's what I've found so far. Are you getting that too?
I think you're totally right. And the other piece that surprised me when we sort of did the research on this, as a business leader today, even if you run a mid-sized company, often you're having a direct impact on more lives than the lord of a medieval village, which is kind of stunning to me when you think about history and sort of like these notable moments that we've seen shape the course of nations. They haven't involved a ton of people, right? Sometimes it's been a couple hundred, sometimes it's been a couple thousand. What was the population of France in 1500? It wasn't very big. And when you see CEOs today they can effectively, not control, but maybe direct the lives of people in the tens and sometimes hundreds of thousands, that's a tremendous amount of power for good. And when we start using that power thoughtfully, I think we can accomplish great change, and also we can receive tremendous respect and acclaim for it.
I agree. And we could drill down into that for a much longer period than we have now. And I intend to talk to you more about that later. But for now, let's move forward. Thought leadership. How does it affect the company's status with consumers?
For me, thought leadership is a cornerstone of really leading in this way, of leading authentically and leading through your ethics. Some of it for sure can be done through advertising, right? But a large part of it is your customers won't know why you're behaving in the way that you're behaving unless you tell them. And we've seen across the board that companies that used to think, oh, like I'm a B2B company or my product isn't that interesting, now are going ahead and wanting to write about all of these elements of the way that their business functions. And that can include, certainly market-specific things like what your predictions are for the market, what you think will be true, how you see shifts happening, but also, these business leadership questions of why you're building your business processes in the way that you are.
I agree. Back to the why. Now, I want to know more about Hippo Reads.
Sure. So we started the company about 5 years ago. The goal was really to find a way to connect academia with business. I think you hear how I like to pepper in my conversation with a lot of these historical anecdotes. That's from a deep place of love for academia. And what we found as we sort of began to explore business models is that this element of really smart and really thoughtful thought leadership was lacking. And there were a lot of very smart people running businesses with a lot of smart things to say that didn't have the right teams in place to help them tell the story. And it ranged from someone who would say, I have this particular insight, but I don't have time to go and dig up the statistics or understand what the narrative should look like, to someone who needed help with ideation. And when we were able to build teams in the way that we wanted to, which is to connect writers and editors and academics and bring the power of all of those people to bear to work with a director, a CEO, or a VP in storytelling, we were able to produce pieces that really resonated, that were really distinctive and uncommon. A large part of what we do is helping our leaders that we work with place their content also, whether it's in Forbes or Entrepreneur or TechCrunch, and they're able to get readership and attention so much better because of the type of work that we put into telling their story.
So the full range for our audience of your talents that you implement with your clients, give us a well-rounded point that somebody can take home with for if they need help with their messaging, but in my opinion everybody does, but give our audience a full feel of the scope that you bring to the table when you come to a company to help them.
Do you mean, sorry, in terms of our product or in terms of process?
Services, yeah, the things that you would do for somebody. Because we talked about how you shape the message to bring it out, but once you've got that message, you have to put it into the market. give me an idea what you could do. Let's say if I was your client, how would you be able to take the tools that you have at your disposal and then walk them out into the marketplace to get the message out the way you would do it? Do you know what I mean?
Great question. That makes sense. So I think we always start with an understanding of the client's goals, an understanding of the brand, what your brand is, what are the things that you're passionate about. The most important thing for us is to find the intersection of your passion and your expertise. So what are you saying that's genuinely new and interesting? And to do this, we do a lot of research on our end. Our editors spend hours reading whatever other topics are currently out there. We feel very strongly that we want our clients to say things that are real news, that are factually backed, but also things that are unique. And we don't want them to sort of be one of a dozen contributors into an echo chamber. So that's the starting point. And from there, we would determine whether your thought leadership takes the form of articles, blogs, LinkedIn posts, case studies, reports, sometimes all of the above. And we would pull together a content plan to deliver it. Generally, our engagements are at least 6 months. Many of our clients have been with us for years. And once we've built the content strategy out, then we would couple that with a sort of distribution mechanism. Some pieces very naturally can just sort of live on a company blog or on a Medium page or on a LinkedIn page. And for others, we'd put some effort behind finding the right home for them and placing them with a publication.
Got it. All right, Anna, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. I've learned a lot from this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
My pleasure. You've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining with us. Don't forget, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.